This is the Farm Monitor. For over 50 years, your source for agribusiness news and features from around the Southeast and across the country, focusing on one of the nation's top industries, agriculture. The Farm Monitor is produced by one of the largest general farm organizations, the Georgia Farm Bureau. Now here are your hosts, Ray DeLessio and Kenny Bergamy.
Yes, my friends, it is time. Time to put down that phone, shut the blinds, grab some coffee and a blanket, and snuggle up to the monitor and to the smooth sounds of Kenny Bergamy.
Yeah.
Seriously, though, welcome to the show, Mr. B. How about that rundown, Mr. Pipes?
How about it, Ray? Coming up, from the get-go, it was a recipe for sweet success. As we ring in the holiday season, the monitor goes inside the daily operations of the Mascot Pecan Shelling Company. Also on the program, when disaster struck, teamwork took over, and it's now being credited with help saving Georgia ports from what could have been a costly shutdown. Plus,
well, hey everybody, Ranger Nick, coming up this month, hurricanes, fire season, all that stuff is wrapping up now, and we're going to be talking about risk associated with trees and things around your home, and an expert with the Georgia Forestry Commission's hanging out with me to tell us some things we can do to benefit our property. All that and so much more rolls on right now on the Farm Monitor.
on a recent episode of the Monitor, we told you about the new elementary agriculture education pilot program here in the state of Georgia and showed you one of the schools that was selected. As a follow-up to that story, John Holcomb sat down with the individuals behind the program, Dalton Green and Emily Potter, two people extremely passionate about agriculture and ag education. So much so, they actually wrote the legislation for the program, which is commonly referred to as Senate Bill 330. Here's John Holcomb.
Starting this past August, agricultural education changed. For the first time in the state of Georgia, agriculture is now being taught in elementary schools, 26 of them to be exact. That's all thanks to these two people, Dalton Green and Emily Potter, two people from Rock Springs, Georgia, that have a passion for agriculture and agricultural education.
In the 8th grade, one of our classes at the middle school was an agriculture class with Miss Betts Berry, and she was kind of my passion. She sparked, she started that spark for me and got me interested. One of the first things I remember her ever telling me was that agriculture touches everybody every day, and that's where it just kind of hit me that that is the most important thing in our lives.
Although Dalton grew up in ag, his story is similar in the sense that it wasn't until middle school that he started to really live and breathe ag and realize his true passion.
When I got involved in FFA, I really developed a passion for ag education. I've always loved to talk, I've always loved to tell people why I do what I do, share my story with others, but also educate them about agriculture, because as I began to get more involved with agriculture, I realized other people don't know the things that I had come to know from being involved in the ag industry and in ag leadership.
Since those middle school years, a lot has changed, but the passion, however, has not, which is why they both pursued degrees in ag education and why they have worked so hard to get it taught in elementary schools.
My purpose and my passion as an agricultural educator is not to get students involved in farming. I know that 99% of the students that I impact in my career will not ever be involved in production agriculture and may not ever step foot on a farm other than when they're in my class. And so my purpose and my passion is that I can give those students the information and the knowledge that they need to be informed consumers, policymakers, environmentalists, and just be aware of what is going on around them.
One of the many great things about ag education in Georgia is the way the curriculum is set up, because it not only teaches kids ag principles, but it also reinforces other subjects the students are learning, oftentimes by giving them a hands-on experience.
It state mandates agricultural education in the state of Georgia to have 3 components, and those 3 components of agricultural education are classroom instruction, FFA, and SAE. Those 3 components of our circle model is what sets us apart in agricultural education. It's what gives students that sense of ownership through their SAEs, that sense of leadership through FFA, and then the classroom instruction that allows them to apply what they're learning in the classroom outside of the classroom and make those real-world connections, and make real-world connections of things that they're learning in their other classes.
In the end, they just hope that the pilot program will be a success so that it will be permanently adopted into the state's curriculum. Reporting in Rock Springs for the Farm Monitor, I'm John Holcomb.
Meantime, what started off as just a small pit stop for travelers more than 60 years ago has now grown into one of the largest pecan shelling and candy making businesses in Georgia. Damon Jones recently traveled down to Glenville and gives you a behind-the-scenes look at what it takes for Mascot Pecan Shelling Company to get their products out to you, the consumer.
Mascot Pecan Company was started by my father in 1953, and it was a gas station slash gift shop along the way from the Northeast corridor down to Florida. And the business soon outgrew my mom's ability to shell the pecans by hand, and that is how my dad got started in the pecan shelling business. And then skip 20 years, skip 30 years, I come along. I was interested in what's called a value-added pecan business, which we started roasting and salting pecans first. We started using pecans as ingredients in candies, and from there we grew into the candy business.
We send them through our shelling our sizing process, and then the nuts are sized by the diameter of the pecan. Then we take those into our shelling operation to where they're dumped into bins, and the bins are conditioned with water to make the nut high in moisture. And then when we run it through our shelling processing, that kind of acts like a sponge to make sure that we shell more halves instead of breaking it into pieces. And once we have the nuts that are shelled, they go through a drying process to bring it down to about 4% moisture. Then they go over various screens to size out pieces. So when you market something with pecan halves, people are always going to want every pecan to be a half. So we try to size out accordingly and get all the pieces out to make sure that the consumer has the best quality product.
We went from using only pecans as an ingredient to over 35 different flavors, which include now peanut butter, mint, coconut, pecans, cashews, everything that you can name. We have chocolate coating lines that do about 6,000 pounds in an 8-hour shift. We have 3 of those. And we have a peanut brittle processing line that puts out 1,100 pounds per hour. We have a nut square line that puts out about 800 or 900 pounds an hour. And we'll shell around 6 million pounds of pecans from October through March. My brother is also a 50% owner with myself, and he has 2 boys here, and I have 1 son here. So it's nice to have your family.
We've been blessed by being able to expand a good bit. Business has been good, and we've brought in probably 20 to 30 more jobs over the past 2 or 3 years. Yeah, it's good to see consumers come in and get such good feedback of the hard work that we put in. It's always something new every day. It's never the same monotonous job every day.
Well, what you're looking at here is a common scene around the home in the fall, piling up that debris like this, but it's also a fire safety risk. I'll explain how and what you can do about it after this.
Hello, I'm Zippy Duval, the 12th President of American Farm Bureau Federation. It's my honor to join you today in celebrating our centennial, 100 years of strong, united voice for all our America's farmers and ranchers. In November of 1919, a great movement had already begun with state and county organizations, and it was taken to a new level with the creation of American Farm Bureau. Just as our nation's founding fathers showed brilliance in their creation of the Constitution, our founders had the foresight to establish American Farm Bureau Federation as a grassroots organization. And you, the grassroots, remain the source of our strength and effectiveness today. When we celebrate American Farm Bureau Centennial, we're also celebrating every state and county organization because you are the heart and soul of American Farm Bureau. Farm Bureau is even more important today than it was 100 years ago. As other voices get louder, farmers and ranchers need a united national voice more than ever. Thank you for your leadership and support of Farm Bureau. Let's go forward together, strengthening agriculture for generations to come.
Only you can prevent forest fires. Created by the Ad Council in 1947, that iconic message was later changed to only you can prevent wildfires in 2001. But what if you live amongst the trees or in a wooded area? How can you prevent a wildfire from starting? Better yet, how can you save your house from being consumed by a wildfire? Well, Ranger Nick knows the answer.
Well, you know, so often on these Ranger Nick segments, I get into some pretty risky kind of situations. And this month, I'm not getting into risky situations. I'm telling you how you can minimize risk. We're wrapping up fire season, we're wrapping up hurricane season, and I want to introduce you to somebody that can help us minimize risk with those trees and things around your property and your home. And that's Seth Hawkins. Hey, Seth, how you doing?
Hey, Nick. How's it going?
I'm doing great. Seth is with the Georgia Forestry Commission, and Seth is an expert in tree risk and fire risk. And we're going to talk today about being fire wise on our property. So Seth, I got to ask a question. I'm standing next to this beautiful tree, but I'm looking on the ground and I'm thinking about fire and fuel wood potential. What do you think about this? This is kind of a nice mulching, creative mulching technique.
Yeah. So yeah, as you'll see when we get over into the woods here in a little while, you'll see we're going to be talking about fuel loading and fine fuels and how that can be an ignition source for wildfires, right? So this isn't an ideal way to mulch around your trees. Just those sticks and stuff just kind of provide kindling essentially at the base of your tree. So if, God forbid, an ember or a spark got into this, it's not going to turn into a fire big enough to catch the tree on fire.
Absolutely. And we're pretty close to this building. And I kind of want to walk over here if that's all right. I want to walk in and critique this building a little bit and thinking about fuel sources and a fire potentially getting close to this building. For the folks at home that might be thinking about their house or their barn, talk to me about this place. What does this look like to you from a fire-wise and a risk standpoint?
Yeah, so FireWise is a program ran by the U.S. Forest Service, and the state forestry agencies are involved as well. And basically FireWise, you can get certified as a community for FireWise, but it's also just landscaping and building tips to help mitigate and minimize the risk you might have at your home if, again, God forbid, a wildfire did encroach upon your home.
Sure.
You know, in a lot of parts of Georgia, we have a lot of folks living in what we call the wildland-urban interface. So that's woods butting up right to houses, which is great. I know I love living in the woods. It's great. But also what comes along with that is inherent is having risk.
Absolutely.
So when we start talking about just fire-wise landscaping and building etiquette and things, so, you know, the first thing that I kind of start looking at is the distance between the actual building and vegetation. So vegetation would be a fuel source in this case.
So like these guys right
exactly.
here. I mean, we're getting close.
And while they seem nice and green right now, when we get in a severe drought like we were at the end of September, beginning of October, these things are definitely dry enough to carry fire if embers got into it. And in those dry conditions, an ember or a piece of ash from a fire can travel almost a full mile and start a spot fire somewhere else. So it's really important for us to be thinking about things like having our gutters cleaned out. I don't know if you can see up there, but the gutters have a lot of leaf debris and stuff, and I'm sure that's really dried out from baking in the sun all the time. So if an ember floats from a forest fire down into that, we've started a fire up in the roof of your house, right? So again, when we're talking about FireWise, we're talking about vegetation and ignition sources being a certain distance from your home. FireWise recommends 0 to 5 feet of a buffer of no vegetation at all, and then 5 to 30 feet of another buffer where you're just kind of making sure you're limbing up your trees and things like that.
And Seth, I mean, looking at this distance here, definitely in violation from a FireWise. And this door right here is wooden. I mean, so that's a problem.
Yeah, right. So, and you know, when we talk about vegetation sources, we also talk about mulch materials and what you have, like, so this wooden landscaping edging right here might not be the most FireWise choice, right? So FireWise is usually going to recommend river stone, pea gravel, things like that to have right around the base of your house, especially if there's wooden parts to the foundation.
So now earlier we were able to see an example of a dwelling that was fire-wise. We saw some of that vegetation backed off there within that zone. We didn't see the limbs over top of the home, and the gutters were cleaned out. So if folks at home are wondering what does this need to look like from a safety standpoint, that was an example there. This maybe not so much so.
Right. So the other building we stopped at, as you know, like you were saying, there's a lot of space there. There weren't tree limbs hanging over it. There wasn't vegetation or ignition sources butted up against the house. Whereas here you can see there's a little, you know, there's potential for if a spark got into this, it could theoretically light this up. If it lit that wooden crawl space door up, that gets into the wooden foundation. So.
And now what I want to do is I want to take us from the building and the aspect of good and not so good buildings to the property. And with hurricane season kind of wrapping up, what are some risks associated with trees around buildings and our homes that we need to think about too? So let's mosey on over there next. Okay, Seth, so we're standing out here along this busy road. We're looking at this tree. Your expert trees is in tree safety and tree risk. What would your recommendations be about this fellow right by the road with this kind of damage?
Yeah, so, you know, this tree has it's an old lightning strike wound on this, and you can see down in here, there's a whole bunch of fungal decay going on inside the tree, right? So whenever we talk about tree risk, we talk about a tree defect, the likelihood of that tree failing, coupled with target occupancy rate. So obviously this busy road right here provides pretty heavy target occupancy rate, so that would increase the risk level for this tree. You know, given this defect, that fungal decay, given its proximity to the road and parking spots, I would usually recommend removal for a tree like this. Now, if you had this tree with these same defects out in the middle of a pasture or in the woods where there's nothing for it to fall on, no target, I probably wouldn't call it high risk, leave it as wildlife habitat and let it ride. But in urban environment, probably remove them.
Yeah, I would look at this tree and think that this is a habitat component, a snag, a standing dead tree, good for woodpeckers and owls. But we look at this as close as it is to the road and a parking lot, a lot of risk there. Y'all at home, you can check out the websites that are on the screen there to learn more about how you can contact a certified arborist and a tree expert professional to come out and give you some help, along with that local extension agent that we always talk about too. Seth, thanks for spending time with me today.
Thank you, sir.
What a great time together, and what a lot to learn about risk with hurricanes and fire. What a great topic this month. Y'all know what to do. While you're online checking out the Ranger Nick segments on YouTube, check out what the guys with the Farm Monitor have got going on. You know we love it when you do that. And until next time, Seth, like we always say, I'm Ranger Nick, reminding you that enthusiasm is contagious. So pass it on. Y'all, thanks for joining us this month. We'll see you back here again next time. See ya.
Well, Nick himself on fire as usual. And speaking of hurricanes, after breathing a sigh of relief from Dorian, days later, their world was literally turned upside down. When we come back, how Georgia ports and other agencies quickly jumped into action and avoided what some say could have been a potential long-term shutdown.
I'm Lindy Klepfer. I'm the owner and operator here at Little Fox Farm, the Glover family farm. I grow a lot of varieties of flowers that I can dry. So I dry them throughout the season, and then around the holidays I make dried wreaths. But I grow all different types of vegetables, root vegetables, leafy greens, tomatoes and corn in the summer. It's, you know, a wide variety. There's a lot of biodiversity. I started farming when I was 18 years old. I actually moved up here from South Florida specifically to farm, and this was one of the first farms that I worked on, well, the second farm, and I didn't think I would be here that long. You know, my plan was to intern on a few farms, but I just haven't left. I've been here for 6 years now, and well, we harvest on Wednesdays for deliveries to chefs in Atlanta, and then on Fridays we harvest all day for the farmers market, which is in Atlanta as well. And we have customers come and pick up on the farm as well, come and pick up their vegetables and their flowers.
What do you want to do? What's like your future goals for this farm? I mean, do you want to expand someday? Do you want your own farm?
I mean, in the 4 years that I've been here, each year I've expanded. I mean, with farming, every day is different and every year is totally different. It's a lot of trial and error. So one year something will go terribly wrong and you do it differently next year, and so you build on that. And so every year I've been able to expand and grow a little more and become more efficient. So there's been a lot of changes from year to year.
Well, finally this week, back in September, Georgia made world headlines when a cargo ship carrying over 4,000 cars capsized off the coast of St. Simon, trapping its crew and threatened the day-to-day operations of the port, which of course includes the exports of some of Georgia's top ag commodities.
Yeah, but as we now know, everyone on board was rescued. The port barely affected, and it was all thanks to some impressive teamwork.
There was talks about Hurricane Dorian coming from the Florida area into Georgia and headed towards Charleston. The governor would come in to let everybody know that evacuation was in order. Once the storm passed, everybody was ready to get back to work. We worked the vessel, the Golden Ray.
We discharged 256 cars. We came in at 7 o'clock start, and we finished right before 12 o'clock.
Well, I received a phone call around 3 o'clock.
Okay, I'm going to bring it back up.
Roger. With breaking news. Cargo ship capsizes off the coast of Georgia. U.S. Coast
It was
Guard.
devastating because we had just worked the vessel.
On the way to the island, I was just praying.
Everybody that was on the pier started praying, and were their lives lost on this vessel?
I know it was a crew on there. I didn't know if anybody was rescued or dead. I just knew just to pray. Once I heard that 20 of the crew was rescued, I felt a little better that my prayers being answered, but then they were saying that it was 4 that was still on there. If I was on a ship and it was standing sideways in total darkness,
I probably would have been hopeless.
I was just praying that maybe that they in a place where they're all right, and hoping that they were together and keeping each other motivated and uplifted. When they put that last gentleman out, the only thing came in my mind was good. Everybody's safe.
The next move was putting our life back together. Everybody that was standing out there was saying, if the channel was closed for 1 to 4 months, what type of impact would it have?
It would have been a major impact. Georgia Port in Savannah and Brunswick generates so much job opportunities for truckers, processing, the rail cars, bringing cars in and out. It would have been devastating.
We work with a great group of men and women. The Coast Guard, Georgia Port Authority, pilots, everybody got together and they were strategizing how we could move forward. We had got past the storm. Everyone was retrieved from the vessel. It was just a matter of time before we started back working.
Brunswick Port is open for business.
Yeah, very impressive work by everybody involved. And unfortunately, that is going to do it for this week's edition of the Farm Monitor.
Here's a reminder, for all the latest ag info regarding food, great recipes, and what's happening down on the farm, be sure you check out our Twitter, Facebook, and Pinterest pages. You'll stay informed and see what's up in the world of farming and with us right here on the show.
Take care, everybody. We'll see you next week right here on the Farm Monitor.
As always, have a great week.